Reddit, what was your most awkward doctor's visit? Went to the doctor to get an x-ray done on my back. I hear the woman working the machine instruct me to hold my breasts as her hand is hovering over the button. Horrified, I grabbed both my boobs in absolute panic, not understanding what the x-ray machine could possibly do to them. Then I hear laughter followed by no. Sweetie, your breath. Your breath. I'm so stupid. Hold your breasts. These new x-ray machine are so powerful. They'll knock 'em right off. Apostrophe. I drove 26 hours straight moving from Florida to Boston. Apparently all that sitting can cause an internal hemorrhoid. After taking a poop I noticed that the toilet was filled with blood. So much blood. That's when I freaked out and went to the ER. After being roomed, a baby doc comes in, does a rectal exam. More blood. She goes to get the chief resident. He looks in my ass. He decides to get the attending, which then decides this is a great learning opportunity for all the medical students. About 12 people, my own age, staring into my bloody ass. I was mortified. I went to the doctor because I had a yeast infection. My doctor, who is a female, wasn't there that day, so they rescheduled me with another one. An old man with a thick mustache. He did the swab thing while I was spread open in front of him, and instead of just sending it to the lab, he took a big whiff of it and said, "Yes, I think it is a yeast infection." A month or so ago I went to my OBGYN for the annual checkup. I had to fill out the sexual history bit and there was a question asking how many new sex partners I'd had in the past 3 years. Remembering my slightly younger, more torrid days, I thought a bit and put down a number that's a little higher than I wish it was. But there's no use in lying to your doctor because they don't care. We get to discussing things and she's going through my chart and just stops. Suddenly the questions turn to, have things been well? No incidents or anything you should report? Is your partner treating you well? Are other people? I was confused until she ends it with, well, I'm going to recommend you get tested for STIs this month. And I wanna give you a high five. Turns out I misread the form and you're supposed to list all your new partners from the past 3 months. She thought I was just being coy about some gangbang/orgy. I thought my face was going to burn off from embarrassment. My wife had a seizure while holding my hand during my vasectomy procedure. Diagnosis: external thrombosed hemorrhoid. In case you don't know that is, it is a hemorrhoid that resides inside your anus, but peeks out to say hello. The vessels supplying it with blood get tangled, and blood gets trapped within the hemorrhoid, leaving it swollen and purple. My very hot doctor and her not so hot nurse are both in the room during the examination. Drive says, "Hey, I'm going to give it a little push." Because sometimes you can just give it a gentle nudge and push it back up there. As soon as she puts pressure on it, the thing explodes. I can't see this happen, but I can feel it explode like a purple tinged, pus-filled firecracker detonating all over myself, the table, and the nurse. Drive was a total pro. She asked the nurse to clean up, washed her hands, and walked out like nothing happened. Had a coconut stuck in my nose once. We had this board game called Monkeys and Coconuts. It had lima bean sized plastic coconuts, and I stuck one in my nose. My mom could not get it out, so off to the doctor we went. I was so scared. When we got there it came out because of my crying and runny nose. 45 years later, and I still have to hear about it. Late term with our second child and my wife was unusually large. We were going the midwife route and she says it looks like twins and she can't do twins. A few days later we are at the OB and I'm filming the tech, but she's not saying a word. She excuses herself and leaves. My wife tells me something's wrong just as the doctor comes in and tells us there is no heartbeat. The size was due to excess fluid. Went from the excitement of 2 and the soul crushing pain of none in a single sentence. Went with my wife to the OB/gyn for a prenatal visit for our first child. This was my first time at one. While waiting in the lobby to get called back, a white trash special complete with short shorts and tramp stamp comes in. She gets called back at the same time we were and escorted to the room next to ours. Nurse does the usual vitals and questions bit, then goes to leave and has my wife put on one of those paper dresses. She informs us the doctor will be in momentarily. The paper dress my wife was wearing had more soundproofing quality than the walls. Through the wall we can hear the doctor talking to the young woman in the room next to us. Wow. That certainly is a foul odor. Apostrophe. Moments like that confirm that the teenage boy in me who wanted to grow up to be a gino was a complete moron. I was a 14-year boy getting a physical. Female doctor accidentally sneezed on my balls. Was aroused. That is all. In all fairness, a breeze would arouse a 14-years-old boy, haha. I went for an STD check and found out they were being shoving a Q-tip up my dick hole. It was very awkward for me, and to try and lighten the situation I said to the hot female, "Doc, be gentle. This is my first time." She was not amused at all. I was having trouble hearing out of my left ear, but I'm stubborn and didn't go to the doctors for a week or so. Doc said I needed to get it washed out, and when the blockage came out it was revealed there was a dead spider in my ear. Once, when I was about 8 or so, I was playing a game with my brother when I felt the very familiar need to poop. I get to the toilet, but nothing comes out. I sit for about 15 minutes before going back to playing. The urge to poop didn't go away, so I went to the toilet another 20 minutes later. Still, nothing came out. I tell my mom, a nurse, this and she just tells me to wait it out. An hour later, and my urge to poop has revolved into horrible stomach cramps. I couldn't walk, it hurt so bad. My mom takes me to the hospital, and I get an x-ray. The doctor saw that inside of me was a turd so large it wouldn't come out. They give me a bunch of laxatives, a bunch of water, and their sympathies. My mom takes me back home just in time to beat the laxatives. I rush to the toilet just before my 8-year-old self has what was, is, and forever will be the biggest shit of my life. Imagine a football. I think you know where I'm going, so there's no need to finish that thought. I was totally fine afterwards. TL. Doctor, my 8-year-old self poops a football. My doctor sneezed into his hands without washing them, then proceeded to touch my nutsack for a physical. For some mysterious reason, my nuts started to retain fluid and soon achieved a grapefruit-sized mass, with no sign of stopping. This was worrying enough for me to walk, John Wayne style, to casualty. Once there I mumbled my problem to the tridge nurse and was given one of those open bum gowns to wear to ensure I had no dignity left. Then I was left to sit in a small, curtained area of the room. I could hear all, but see nothing. Some poor bastard came in who had just had his foot run over by a JCB, so he was deemed more important than my swollen sack. Once they had finished with him, I could hear the good staff discuss my case, laugh, then say, right, who wants to take a look at Mr. Testicles? Apostrophe. Marvelous. 24 hours later, and it had all resolved itself. During my sophomore year of high school I had just started dating my physician's daughter. I was getting my yearly physical and had to answer the inevitable question about sexual activity. I was extremely uncomfortable, so I lied and told him that I wasn't sexually active. He was an awesome guy, so he brought in another doctor who swore confidentiality to ask me the same question and finished the exam from there. I found a lump on one of my testicles. Broke without insurance. A friend that was an oncologist screened me for testicular cancer for free. Only now he has felt up my package as much as my wife. Also, one of my suspect nut retraced so hard he had to massage it back down so he could examine it. But hey, no cancer. This wasn't embarrassing for me, but the doctor I had my first gynecologist examined. Lady doc was there doing her business and all, and she comes over to do my breast exam. This doctor was surprisingly shy, given her chosen medical path. So she's talking to me, and she says, "You have really pretty green eyes, just like my husband." So I turned to her and said, "You know, I usually don't let people get to second base until after they say that." Apostrophe. She turned bright red, and now I'm not nervous about my gyn appointments anymore. Friend of mine in college passed out at a party and we drew a giant dick on his chest in Sharpie. As a bonus, the dick was depicted coming all the way up to his neck. He woke up in a daze, put his shirt on, and ran out the door to get to his doctor's apt on time. Doctor needed to check his back and chest with a stethoscope. Asked him to remove his shirt. He sat there for the exam with our artwork proudly displayed. I had to go to the doctor because I managed to get poison ivy on my sack. The nurse was going to give me a shot to clear it up in a little over 24 hours, but apparently she could tell that I was tense because I'm not a fan of needles. My wife was in the room with me, and the nurse about to give the shot put her hand on my butt and said, "You need to relax." As I was trying, I guess I didn't relax enough, and she started rubbing my butt cheek and started singing, "Relax. Don't do it." My wife died laughing, and she said I had the most mortified look on my face. To me at the time it wasn't funny, but to picture it, me bent over the examination table with my ass hanging out, and a nurse singing to me while rubbing my cheek and hovering a needle just above my ass. I went into my university's health services with an exploded lung, and they asked me if I was pregnant. I'm a guy. A doctor gave me sex ed class condensed into 20 minutes. With my mom in the room, I was 12 and homeschooled. I was getting my vocal cords scoped and was pretty nervous about the procedure. I'm a singer, and my grandfather came with me cause he had to have his cords scoped in the past. We are sitting in the exam room and the doctor sticks the camera all the way down my throat, easy as can be. And my grandfather chimes in. I choked like crazy when they tried to put that thing down my throat. "What's your secret?" The nurse let out a shocked little laugh as my grandfather goes totally white in the face and says, "I'm gonna wait outside." TL. Doctor, my grandfather unintentionally made a joke about my lack of gag reflex and then had a terrible realization about it. I was in high school and went to the doctor for a physical, and she did the check down your pants to make sure everything is going okay. When she checked down there, she complimented me on my shaving and said how a lot of girls end up getting razor burn and whatnot. And she said I did a great job and went on about it for what seemed like a good 3 minutes. I just kinda muttered out a thanks? And left it at that. Quite awkward hearing that from a doctor. This is a throwaway because it's pretty damn embarrassing. When I was younger and experimenting with my body, I used to use shampoo and hand soap as a lubricant. I know, awful idea, but I didn't know any better at the time, so after a good amount of time my dick got extremely scaly, almost, and skin began to come off to the point where it began to bleed. So eventually one night I couldn't sleep because of it and caved and told my mom. Dad wasn't around about it because I had no idea what was causing it. After a long talk with my doctor, he thought it was a male yeast and gave me cream. So that put me off from experimenting for a while. Oh god. When I was 17 I got drunk for the first time and my boyfriend had to pick me up from the party. I didn't dare go home, so I stayed at his place that night. Of course, we did as horny teenagers do and started getting frisky, and I climbed on top. I must have lost my rhythm or something because all of a sudden I felt like my guts had been impaled. Fast forward to the next morning, I was in so much pain that I couldn't stand up straight and was vomiting. We both knew this was not normal, so he took me to the ER and I had to call my mom and tell her what happened. Same with the doctors, and you could just see them trying not to laugh. They checked me for internal bleeding and found none. Thank God. They ruled it as internal bruising, but kept me overnight just in case. I bruised my uterus with a dick, which wasn't even that big. Maybe 7 feet. I'm just a very petite girl, and had to explain the situation to my mother and a whole room full of medical staff. I was in a conservative, third world Muslim country. Thanks to really bad sex, I was in pain and had to find a gyno. Asking for a gyno was awkward enough, as the doctor on standby went, "You're sexually active?" in a very disgusted tone. The gyno was a guy, so the cause of my injury is because I ducked a guy who's probably a virgin and didn't know you can't just shove it in hard, especially if you're big. I just had minor tearing and it was fine, but the gyno couldn't resist asking, "So, how big was he?" Please subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.